For decades, the name Les Wexner was American retail. He was the visionary who built a multi-billion-dollar empire and pretty much shaped the modern shopping mall. But now, that whole legacy is completely overshadowed by this toxic partnership that's basically rewritten his entire story.
All right, so let's just get right into it, because this is the big question, right? How does a guy who's a total retail genius end up so deeply entangled with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein?
And really, this is the whole puzzle of Les Wexner. On one hand, you've got this incredible builder. Fortune 500 CEO, Ohio's richest man. And on the other, a guy whose connection to Epstein was so deep that an internal FBI email actually flagged him as a possible co-conspirator. It's just, wow.
So before we can even begin to understand the fall, you've got to appreciate just how high he climbed. Let's start there. Let's look at how Wexner became, without a doubt, the king of them all.
And believe it or not, it all started with this, $5,000. That's it, a pretty modest loan from his aunt back in 1963. And that little bit of seed money, that's what he used to open his very first store, a shop he called The Limited. Just look at this timeline. It shows you the insane speed of his success. He goes from that one little store in '63 to taking the company public just 6 years later. The 80s and 90s? Whoa! It was just this blur of buying up huge brands. And by 2015, you've got Harvard Business Review calling him one of the best CEOs on the planet. Talk about a meteoric rise.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth did he pull this off? Well, it definitely wasn't just luck. The guy was a true innovator. He had this super specialist approach. He completely transformed Victoria's Secret. It used to be a brand for men buying for women. He flipped it to be for women themselves. He mastered the whole fast fashion thing way before anyone else was even talking about it. He wasn't just in the malls, he was basically shaping the entire culture of the American mall.
Okay, so it's at the absolute peak of his power, right? The 1980s. And that's when this new guy enters the picture, Jeffrey Epstein. And this, right here, is where the whole story takes that incredibly dark turn.
Now, hold on. Before we go any further, we have to talk about this legal term, power of attorney, because it's absolutely central to this story. Look, this isn't just, letting a buddy manage your checking account. This can give someone sweeping, almost unlimited power to act for you in pretty much any financial or legal situation. It's a level of trust that is just profound. And in 1991, Les Wexner handed over that profound level of trust to Jeffrey Epstein. And according to a Justice Department memo, this gave Epstein total control over Wexner's money, with, and this is a direct quote, virtually no oversight. For a billionaire CEO, that is just an absolutely mind-boggling arrangement. And the fallout from that decision? It was catastrophic. Years down the road, after he finally cut ties, Wexner claimed that Epstein had stolen or, misappropriated this amount from him. We're talking several $100 million. Just let that sink in.
So fast forward to 2019. Epstein gets arrested, this whole thing blows up, and this is Wexner's public statement. He basically says he's a victim, right? That he was embarrassed, he was deceived by a guy he trusted way too much.
But here's the thing. The damage went so far beyond just the money. What came out was this tangled web, where it looked like Epstein was actually using his connection to Wexner's massive empire as a tool for his crimes.
And this is maybe the most disturbing part. Epstein allegedly weaponized his connection to one of the most famous brands in the world, Victoria's Secret. He would allegedly pose as a talent scout, using the glamour of the brand and the fact that he was so close to its powerful owner. He used that to lure young women and gain their trust.
Okay, so this is the absolute key question, isn't it? What did Wexner know, and when did he know it? Well, reports have surfaced claiming that Wexner was warned about Epstein's behavior, specifically that he was running around pretending to be a scout, but that, allegedly, nothing was done about it. The warnings were ignored.
And that leaves us right here, with the central question of this whole entire mess. Was this just a terrible, catastrophic mistake in judgment? Or was it something closer to, to negligence, turning a blind eye?
So once the world started to understand the full scope of what Epstein had done, the fallout for Wexner and the company he built was, it was fast and it was brutal. This was the reckoning. Just look at this timeline. It really shows you how fast it all fell apart. Now, Wexner says he cut all ties way back in 2007 because of the money stuff, but the public reckoning didn't really hit for another decade. But when it did, by early 2020, he's out. He has to resign from the company he created, and a year after that, the company is paying out these massive settlements.
And the price tag on that settlement? $90 million. That's what L Brands, the parent company, had to pay to settle lawsuits from shareholders who were basically saying the board completely failed to deal with the toxic culture and Wexner's connection to Epstein.
But it wasn't just a check they had to write. This settlement forced real, fundamental changes inside the company. The biggest one? They had to stop using non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, to silence people with harassment claims. I mean, that is a huge shift in how a corporation operates.
So, all of that brings us to where we are now. The empire, it's still there. But its founder's legacy, it's permanently stained. And it leaves us trying to figure out what's left of this once legendary career.
And the two sides of his public life are just so jarring. On one side, you have this guy who has been a massive philanthropist, giving away hundreds of millions, especially in Ohio. But on the other, no amount of money can really erase the public feeling that his story is now a cautionary tale. A tale about power, trust, and just a profound failure.
And then there's this detail from the Department of Justice that is just absolutely damning. It pretty much says that Wexner wasn't just a source of Epstein's money. He appears to have been the source. Think about that. Epstein's entire, lavish, criminal lifestyle was apparently bankrolled by money from this one, single, disastrously misplaced trust.
Now, it's important to say, Les Wexner has never been charged with any crime. His lawyers are clear. He cooperated fully. He was not a target of the investigation. But at the same time, we can't ignore this. Early on in the 2019 investigation, an internal FBI email specifically named him as a possible co-conspirator that investigators needed to go talk to.
So, at the end of the day, the story of Les Wexner really forces us to wrestle with a very tough question. No doubt, his business genius built a retail empire that changed how we all shop. But his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, well, it helped build something far more sinister. And it just leaves you wondering, what really is the price of a blind spot when you're one of the most powerful people on the planet?